So this is my version of Romeo and Juliet. I have designed this as like kind of a poster that would be used in advertising for Romeo and Juliet, if it was ever performed or anything. I decided to set my version of Romeo and Juliet in the English Civil War during 1642 and 1651. Even though it's not that far from the time period that Shakespeare was writing Romeo and Juliet anyway, I feel that this would be a good time to set it because of the civil war that was going on at the time. And so, with the dialogue...
Sorry, why?
Why?
Why because of the war is what I'm trying to get.
Because my message...
How does that connect with what you did?
Because my message would be that religion... With every war, there's always been a religion base to it. There's always been religion mixed in with it.
Yeah.
It's always been broadcast in on the news and stuff like that. Religion is the cause of this, or religion has caused that. Which sometimes yes, but it always gets the blame for it. And I feel that with religion, it's a belief, and that we should respect each other for their beliefs. And so that's why I've said it in the English Civil War, because even though because it was shortly after all the Protestant and Catholic switches with the monarchy changing constantly from Catholic to then Protestant, and then this was between the royalties and the royalists and the Roundheads, which were the governments. And so it's a point that wars aren't always based on religions. They can be based on other things as well, but religion always gets the brunt for it. For dialogue, I was thinking of setting it in a more modern version of the script. This is so that the audience can find it easier to relate to what's happening, and they can understand it more. For the costumes, I thought that they'd be very typical for the time period, but also with the Montagues and the Capulets, they would be split between the two sides. So the Montagues would be the royalists and have the royalist military uniform, and the Capulets would have the Roundhead military uniform. But then the lords would have what the lords were wearing at the time, which was normally a tunic with a breastplate, and the tunic would be a different colour to represent different side. With the serving ladies, they would wear either a black dress or a white dress with a white apron. And with the ladies, they would wear the typical clothes for the noble ladies of the time period. So it was very extravagant with collars and as much jewellery as possible and colours and stuff. So with the music, I thought that a orchestra would be best used to put across the type of music that was played during the time, which is also in one of the videos for dance. There is an example of the type of music that would be played. I did a set design for how I feel it would be best performed on a stage. I felt that there could be a column for the balcony that was built onto the set, and in the set there would be a background and have a church on a hill for the friar that Romeo goes and talks to when he runs away. In the Globe Theatre, they have a lowered floor in front of the stage, which the audience could stand in because it was cheaper. But I felt that that area could be used by the actors instead, but have the audience on a raised platform around it. So then the actors could walk around and use the space more freely. I thought of setting it near Edgehill, which Edgehill was the place where the first major battle during the Civil War was held. It was a royalist victory at the time, so I felt at the beginning of the play where the two families have a fight, that could be portrayed as the Battle of Edgehill, and then everything could play out from then. Right, I have 2 videos to show you of the 2 types of dances. The traditional dance that would probably have been used in the original Romeo and Juliet, which would be this one. Which was very typical for the Elizabethan era, which is to say. But I decided to go against that and move into more of the time period of the Civil War, when it was happening, and go for this kind of dance and this kind of music, which is more upbeat and more of a celebration, because at the time it was seen as to dance and to have music and stuff, it was a celebration for the nobles, and so it was more elaborate and therefore used for parties and social gatherings of the nobles. In the video you could hear the type of music that I felt would be used for my version of Romeo and Juliet. I felt that this kind of music would be better because it's more upbeat, which in the Capulet party would be better because it's a party, and more upbeat music you're more likely to dance to, more upbeat music, whereas if it's slow and sad, then you're more likely to sit down and cry. But also because it's mostly violin based and lutes and flutes and stuff, it could be used to make a very sad piece of music for if when Romeo runs away into exile, then it can be used to portray the sadness felt in that scene. My target audience would be mostly families and young adults. I felt this would be best because to portray my message across that wars are not always based on religion, and whatever they're being told by the media isn't always true. And so to get them to understand that not everything they're told by the media and stuff is true, and that religion doesn't cause all these problems, but it can. But we need to get around that and stop having wars, and to stop blaming on religion. And so therefore it would stop wars altogether.
It's a big target, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, firstly, I'm in my I'm a modern audience living in 2015. I'm an Italian audience. Why the Civil War? What's that got to do with me?
Because
What are you driving at with that?
it's a big part of our history, as an English resident,
Yeah.
it's a big part of what happened here, and so lots of people already know about it, and so you don't have to go into depth explaining the setting or the time period or what was happening, because people already know because they were taught about it in school, and so therefore they can also relate to that because at the moment we still have a monarch and we still have a government in power, but they're working together instead of against each other. But that doesn't mean that in future years we could have a monarch that feels that they don't agree with what government's doing, and so it could happen again. And so, therefore, relatable.
You show me some Tudor music and Tudor dancing. Obviously, the Tudors had all died before the Civil War.
Yeah.
And you also show me a picture of an orchestra, most of the instruments of which weren't invented until the 1800s.
Yeah, I chose orchestra because...
But that's not... The orchestra that you showed wasn't playing the music.
No, it wasn't.
Right.
But I felt that that would be the best way to portray the kind of music in the situation given. And also, it would also create more of an atmosphere than just a small group of people playing some lutes or flutes. Whereas if you have more people playing a wider variety of like music, then it could all come together and make a whole, which you wouldn't get otherwise.
Your message you're saying is trying to stop religion from from causing wars. That's what you want me to take away from this. So I'm just not sure how doing Romeo and Juliet in the Civil War does that.
Well, doing Romeo and Juliet, it's about two families that believe in the same thing, but then they end up fighting against each other because they feel the competition, which religion nowadays is seen as the same thing. They all believe in their own things.
Get that? What's that got to do with the Civil War?
With the Civil War,
because it is the only reason I'm saying that is because you haven't mentioned the religious aspect of the Civil War.
With the Civil War, the religion had all settled out. It wasn't as bad as in the Tudor era. There was still a lot of stuff going on, but it was kind of boiling down. And so, like, they had all come together in a way and fighting for the same thing, but then they were fighting against each other, and so they won.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there.